Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to Karleen. Hello, Karleen. I'm Karleen, of course. I'm your host. If you're new here, this channel is pretty eclectic. I dive into all kinds of themes and topics all around mysticism, but also our culture and what's going on in our society. But then I dabble in astrology a little and on it goes. So as I'm feeling called to do. I am super happy that you're joining me here on this live. I hope you drop a comment in the comment section. You'll have to be a subscriber though. So feel free to subscribe to the channel and yeah. So I wrote down the topic today is the goddess. And as I'm doing that, I'm holding my feminine amethyst and just lighting some incense here. And as I just say a small, silent internal prayer, flame, I just hope that you close your eyes for a moment, just a moment, and you can take this smoke and use it to cleanse or bring blessings to you. And let's just have a small moment of silence together. And take a deep breath in and exhale. And a deep breath in again, all the way in. And exhale. All righty. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Okay. Happy Friday, joyous day. Happy Friday. Great to see you too. Okay, you guys. So I themed this the goddess. We're talking about some goddessy themes or the divine feminine themes and what it means to be a woman in the world or an aspect of what it means to be a woman in the world. And carrying feminine energies and how that shows up in your life or in the lives of those around you or in your communities. And I'm going to finally officially also open the portal to something absolutely magnificent that is coming up. And this all ties in. This all ties in. So let me go back and back and back and back and back and back and back. And I don't talk much, occasionally I'll throw a little thing out there on myself, and my background, because it is, after all, the internet and people are people. And right now it's really peopling out there a lot. So, and kind of, there's special things that you just keep to yourself or to your close personal group of people, or special insights that you have too that are mainly just for you. They're not meant for everybody else out there. They're your insights for your soul growth, and they're personal, they're private, right? But somehow I feel like now is the time to open up on a variety of things, and which wasn't that easy for me to do or talk about a couple of years ago. Or yeah, a couple of years ago. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. So what got me thinking and what led me into this thought process and this experiential process of womanhood, right? Of course, being a woman, of course, being born of a woman, of course, living as a woman in this society. But for me, there were always deeper things that kind of happened in my life that kind of made me question things a lot more than maybe I would have done without these experiences. And one of the big experiences I had was growing up in Germany. I wasn't born here, but I moved here when I was 3 years old and three and a half, maybe around there. And that, of course, like really formed and shaped who I became, of course, right? And how I saw things, how I perceived things, how I saw myself as a woman and how I saw others. But I really oof, I have to pull it all together because there's so many topics and it's making me nervous, you guys. Talking about myself is not my super, like not about those deep, deep past things, you know? But yeah. So anyways, there are a couple of things that I experienced here in Germany which are just wild and really hard to um explain, really hard to talk about, also because of the natural veil of silence that was in Germany during the time I was growing up over certain topics. And it's so difficult. Oh my goodness, but I have to do this, you guys. I have to do this. So one of the most, I'd say the most formative things that happened to me in the sense that it really made me question reality and everything that we'd been taught, everything that I'd read, everything that was passed down to us, and made me really realize that history was written by the victors. And not to say that they rewrote history or that history is completely wrong. That would be a little bit of a, going too far. Not really. But and that certain tones of it, certain aspects of it, certain emphasis, certain things that were emphasized, these are all things that were kind of, yeah, based on this one experience that kind of opened a lot of gates and a lot of doors to me. And you might be wondering, what does this have to do with the divine feminine when I tell you about it? But we'll get into it. So, way back when, a lifetime and a lifetime and another lifetime ago, I swear I've lived four lives in between. I was taking nursing in this, actually, I'll go even further back. I was jobbing. I was jobbing at a hospital in the town I lived in called Ulm. And I was jobbing there at the university hospital. And so I, made friends with some doctors and made friends with some nurses. And I thought, oh, nursing's not a bad thing to get into. I can like follow my passion of saving the world and maybe I can work for Doctors Without Borders. Maybe I can do something, that is worthwhile, that makes my life worthwhile, that makes everything make sense. And so I asked, right? Because I figured, hey, if they can throw in a good word for me, because to understand nursing in Germany is an apprenticeship. So you study for 3 years and it's 1 week where you're actually working in the hospital. And that's why it's also seen as kind of cheap labor. Like we used to joke, we're just cheap labor here. So 1 week you're working in the hospital and you're moving through all the stations and they're teaching you to do everything. And then the next week you're at school and you're learning why you're doing everything that you were taught. And so yeah. So I'd asked, maybe they can throw in a good word for me when I put in my application. And the resounding message that came back to me was, oh God, like, sure, do it at a university hospital, but it is so fast paced that you're probably not going to learn anything. You're only going to do things on a surface level and you're just going to be a number. Go to a smaller hospital and you'll be a name there at least and you'll learn a lot more. So me being me, and I was pretty young, 23 at the time, I think. And I went and I applied at two separate small hospitals. And so I have to show you the locations on the map to so you guys can follow along. So 1 second here. 1 second. Oops. 1 second. Let me pull this up because I wasn't even planning on going this far back and telling you guys this. So, share. Okay, so you guys can see the map, I hope. So let's scroll out so you guys have an idea. There's Germany, right? And this little town, actually my stepdad's family, and that plays a whole role too, because my step grandmother was quite the interesting lady. They're from the north. So his father was from close to Düsseldorf. And but where I mostly grew up, I went to school down and around here in this town called Villingen, Villingen-Schwenningen. And maybe I'll even find it. It's not too big, but it should be here somewhere. Here's Kalv, Nagold. Anyways, whatever. Down in the south, that's where I went. There it is, Villingen-Schwenningen, see? Right close to where I am now, right? So Villingen-Schwenningen, that's where I went to school. And where I actually spent a lot of time and where major points in my life were made, like the birth of my daughter and all of that, was here in this town called Ulm. So I'm working there at the university clinic, which is up here. And they're telling me, apply somewhere else because like we're huge. You're not going to be, you're just going to go under here, go to a smaller clinic where you're actually going to be taught something. People have time to talk to you. You're not going to be just a number. You're going to be a name and you'll have time to dig into things. So I applied at, where was it? I think it was Memmingen down here. And there's another hospital over here, but that was more psychiatry in Bad Schussenried. So I didn't really want that one, but I applied anywhere. Anyway, I think I also applied in Ehingen, and I also applied in this small town, Günzburg, which was actually, I'd never been to Günzburg. I'd never been to Günzburg up until that point. It was just some, little town off to the side there, whatever, right? And so I threw in my application there too and didn't think much about it. And people didn't talk about Günzburg. See, after World War II, there was a veil of silence, and that lasted well into, I mean, you have to think and remember that back in the 90s, um, that was only what, 50 years later after the war, 40 to 50 years. So think back where we are now and what happened 40, 50 years ago. It's not that long, it's not that long ago, right? And so there was a total veil of silence, and in Ulm there is even a what do you call it? A concentration camp, but it's very small, and it's one of the earliest concentration camps that they built back in World War II. And nobody knew about it. To this day, a lot of the people in Ulm, they don't remember it or know about it because right after World War II, they turned it into a restaurant. So they'll remember going there for, Sunday dinners and lunches, and dancing and singing, but they don't remember that it was a concentration camp before that. And it was very hush-hush concentration camp, and it was effective though in the network of concentration camps that they built up because it was the smaller ones, people didn't really die there, but they were abused there, but they were sent home to die. So people knew exactly what that they'd done something there, but they went and died at home. And that was very intense for the people of the time. We have to think back with their sense of pride and their sense of, wrongdoing. Think back to your grandparents. And, kids, if they get caught shoplifting today, they're like, okay, whatever. But think back to like 50, 60 years ago and you get caught shoplifting or a police officer comes to your home, like, and people talk about it for decades, right? And it's something absolutely horrible. So now imagine a family member comes home during that time and dies because they were in jail or in prison. And so that's, the shame kept people quiet and it was effective. So because of those smaller concentration camps, they were then able to build the bigger ones. So much to the history of that, which is the backstory is kind of important. So anyhow, I get taken by Günzburg and this other one, but I decide for Günzburg because it was a little bit easier to access. It was a little bit bigger. It was a little bit, just more. And for some reason, I was being pulled out there. So I went. That's where I went. And I didn't read up on Günzburg before that. I was young. And I was like, I mean, every rock and stone in this place has some kind of a history, right? So I just went out there or whatever. And when I got out there, I felt like the atmosphere was a little weird, but I thought, okay, this is normal small town Germany. It's like a little weird everywhere you go. And I thought it's okay. It's only 3 years I'll get through, right? And so I start, and the energy was just weird. People were nice. I can't say they weren't nice. I can't say I was mistreated or abused. That would have been a lie, kind of. But there was a weird freaking energy. Yeah. And there were some weird encounters, and that's the one that I'm edging into. Now, what a lot of people don't know, me included, is that Günzburg has an old history, and there's one family that kind of runs that town, and that family they built machines. They had a company or a fabrik. They had a factory that built machines, especially focusing on farm machines. And so they basically employed half the town, and they financed all these things like hospitals, kindergartens, things of that nature. So they supported or financed it outright. And so the hospital was one of those things that they'd financed as well. Anyways, I end up, this is so hard for me to tell. It's unbelievable. And you guys are not going to believe me. And that's why it's so hard for me to tell, but I have to tell it because that's really what kickstarted everything for me. So, anyways, I end up, working on one of the stations because as I explained before, you move through all your stations. And so I end up working on one of the stations and I get sick. So I go to the doctor to get my sick note, but the doctor is outside of the hospital, obviously, right? So I go and I get my sick note, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're here and you're actually doing this here." And I'm like, "Why?" And he goes, "You didn't know about Günzburg's history and that it's a brown nest, and that's what they call um basically a town that's really connected to National Socialism, that was really connected to that ideology and to a certain extent still is. And they called it brown because of the brown shirts, because of the whole history. You guys know who the brown shirts are, I hope. If you don't, look it up. So anyways, I'm like, yeah, well, it's okay so far. And he goes, if ever you feel like it's too much, just come see me. Don't worry about it. And I'll write you sick notes and you don't have to worry about it. So I was like, oh my goodness, it's that bad, eh? So anyways, I go back, everything's fine, continue along. And then all of a sudden, one morning, I walked onto the station and the nurses tell me I walked past a room and there was a name on the door. And this now ties back to the family that I just told you about that owns half that town. So there was a name on the door. And I walked past, and as you're walking past and you're shuffling on for your shift, and I just registered, oh, that room has a name. And then I did a double take because I saw the name and I kept walking. Then I thought, wait a minute. And I turned back and I looked at the name and I'm like, this can't be right. So in that fluke of life and just life and her irrationalities and her you know, t- crossing timelines. This was someone who was, and I'll say the name at the end of this. This was someone who was very well known, extremely, 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 extremely well known. And that's why I took a double take on the name. So I thought, must be a name, somebody who has the same name, like it's possible, right? So I go on. We do the shift. When you're I did this in German, so I'm thinking in German. So anyways, when you're doing the Shifterübergabe, when you're telling what happened in the last shift to the new shift people that are coming on, the nurses that are coming on. So we did that. And this guy's name wasn't mentioned at all. Nobody said a word, not one word. And I'm like, okay. So I asked a nurse about him, and all she said to me was, "You don't have to go in there if you don't want to." And I was like, "What?" Because that doesn't happen as a student. You don't have a choice. Not back then. You didn't have a choice. It wasn't like, "Oh, I'm not doing this room, but I'll do that one." No. So she's like, "If you don't want to, you don't have to go in there." I was like, But I'm curious now because of that name. You guys, when I tell you the name, and I'll tell you the name of the family that runs that town, and I'll tell you what, when I told other people from that town what I'd seen, who I'd seen, and that they weren't surprised, and that they told me this has been going on for years, for years. And when I tell you why that shifted my perspective on reality. Okay. So anyways, I start going into the room, and I'm doing my thing, like cleaning the sheets, bringing him food, doing all that, right? And his family starts tipping me. Now, as a student, you get tips as a nurse occasionally, if you're lucky. I think they still do it today. But I usually back in the day, and this was before the euro, so then I would get maybe 5 marks a day, maybe, 10 marks occasionally. That would be really good. But from this family, every single day I was getting 50 D marks, 50 D marks. 50 D marks is the same as 50 euros, right? So I was getting 50 euros a day in tips from this family. And I couldn't believe it. That kind of sealed the deal for me because that was too much. That was way over the top, too much, way too much. But this man, he was tall. He was, I'm gonna say it, he was early 80s. He was extremely good looking, extremely well kept, extremely well educated, extremely well, I had this aura of authority about him. Also had the aura of someone who was well traveled. This was like a gentleman from a different time, from a different world, there was a charisma to him. And at the time that I met him, I knew about certain things, but I didn't know that everybody was saying that he was charismatic. He was definitely charismatic. And all the stuff that everybody attributed to him, I couldn't see. I'm not saying he didn't do it. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying that his charisma was palpable. Um, this was someone who was very like clearly high ranking. And he was just, yeah. So he kind of, just watched me for a while, and I kind of just watched him. And there was this moment where I really felt like, what is this fate? Like, what is this life? Like, what am I doing here? Like, what? And that's when everything started to kind of, yeah. So who I met in that hospital, I'll show you the family. 1 second. So that's him, this guy. And everybody said that he died in the early 1979. See, the official date is 1979. And supposedly he died in 1979 in Brazil. But up until 1985, people were still reporting sightings of him in Argentina, in Brazil, in all over the place. I have a hypothesis what happened. I have a hypothesis what happened, and I might do a reading on it. But this is something that goes really deep for me because it's such a crazy story and nobody believes me. And I get it. I totally get it. I totally get it. And so anyways, he was there for about a week. And then he was gone. Like he left at night. He was taken out at night. I got back on the shift the next morning and he was gone. Everything was wiped away as if he'd never been. There were no records of him. There was no, again, when you're starting a new shift and all of that, there was no information relayed about what happened to him, which doctor saw him, if he was released on what medication. Like there was nothing that was relayed. And he was just gone, vamoosh, as if he'd never been. Now, to understand what happened, the chaos of post-war was crazy. He did get out. Obviously, got out. Everybody knows that. And he disappeared too. He bounced around Paraguay, Brazil, and Argentina for a while. But he would always come back to Germany and he would sneak into Germany. So he would land in a different country, mostly Switzerland or you name it. And then he would drive across the border under some kind of fake passport or fake ID. But most of the time he was with his own ID. And he even got his own passport issued, although the government was looking for him. Like it's such a wild story. And but he would drive in for his medicals to his hometown hospital, which his family had helped fund, right? And which um the family still had a very strong backing in that town, clearly, and a very strong, understanding and so on and so forth. So I don't believe that was his date of passing at all. Again, when I asked direct questions, I got no answers. So that no answer was my answer, if you know what I mean. I dug into his family to see if there was any other with that same name as him. Nope. The last one that was named that same way was in 1789 or something like that. Um, Yeah, so they said they did DNA on his body in 1990 something, but he passed away in 1970s. In 1980s, I think they checked to see if it was actually him, and they decided it was him. And then in the 1990s, they did a DNA analysis and said that the DNA of the body that they found was very close to the DNA of his son and of his nephew. But the thing is, his brother passed away 4 years before in 1974 or in 1975. His brother passed away. And so, right? That's all I'll say here on YouTube. But that's what really got me realizing this world is not quite what they say it is. And it's a very difficult thing to put out there, but it needs to be out there because A, you can't prove it, right? How do I prove this now? And B, it goes against the narrative of what everybody's been taught and what everybody's been told. Again, I don't know if this guy was 100%. I'm pretty sure it was him because of the also because of how they reacted on the station I was working on. Like, you don't have to go in there if you don't want. The 50 DMARC tip that I was getting every day, the silence, especially the silence of everybody around him and his issues and what he was there for. I knew everything about every other patient except for him. I didn't know the full story about him. They wouldn't talk about it. He had his own doctors, not the doctors that we had usually running around. So there was definitely something else up there. So, and he was in an age, I mean, at the time he was early 80s, mid 80s. I haven't worked it out, but I remember it was around that. And he was still okay. Like he was still, you know, perfectly fine. And he was definitely, even at that age, he was really, yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, that got me really, oh my gosh, that was so hard to tell. And there are not many people, like I've told a couple people, but I tried to tell it once before and people didn't get it. And yeah. So in any case, that made me question a lot of things. And not only that, it also when I was working as a nurse, right? And I was speaking, of course, dealing with elderly people and speaking to a lot of the elderly, and they were telling me all the stories that they couldn't talk about with their family or with their friends or what have you. Like they were chatting me up. And most of them were really nice. And I know that people would say, yeah, they were nice to your face and mean behind your back. Well, isn't that everybody? But they were really, really, really open. They shared their stories. They shared what happened during the war for them. They shared how they experienced things, how they saw things. Most of them said they had no idea what was going on. They just knew that he was building roads and creating jobs. And all of a sudden things were better after World War One and or seemed to be getting better, and they actually had no idea. They knew that something kind of wasn't, that there was something going on, but they thought, because back then they were very, whatever higher ups do or whatever people in the authority do, you have to listen to them and don't ask questions, just put your head down and get back to work. And I mean, is it any different nowadays? So yeah, they were telling me all their stories, and that's when I started to also see a different aspect of things, a different corner of things, a different way of perceiving things, because before that it was just you all are evil. And then during that work I started seeing things completely differently. And then when I had that encounter, I thought my world, like, literally everything started breaking apart. And I realized that not everything that they put out there is for our benefit or fully true. And there's a vested interest in a certain line of things. So, that being said, that brings me to the goddess and understanding of, the femininity and all of that, because that tied in to a lot of conversations I had with women, the elderly women that I was working with, and that I was also taking care of, and the stories that they told after World War One. And a lot of them are horrible, horrible, horrible stories. And I won't repeat a lot of them here. They're very traumatic, extremely traumatic stories. And it just reminds me of the resilience of women, the power of women, no matter where you come from, no matter what country's story we're looking at. And that's another thing, like color and race and culture and all these topics that I had to think about from a very, very young, young, young age. And how much is personality and how much is culture and how much is this and how much is that. But in any case, post World War II, there were mainly only women in Germany. And I think in Berlin, they said there were about 9,000 men to 26,000 women, something like that. And a lot of them were dead or in camps or, interred somewhere. And so women had to make do. Women had to clear the rubble of the bombed out cities. They had to rebuild everything. They had to figure out the machines. They had to get the work done on the farms. They had to protect their kids. It was the Wild West, similar to what other women had to do anywhere else. But the thing is that they never truly got credit for reestablishing or building the foundations of a society. And the masculine likes to kind of, be that show, right? So we're the ones making the decisions, we're the leaders, and look to me because I have the answers, and so on and so forth. But it's really the women in the background who are pulling the weight, who are clearing the rubble, who are clearing the land, who are making the homes, who are, establishing an order of society and in society, and establishing a network within society, and establishing links and establishing a support system. Okay, let me check back with you into the chat because I haven't been checking the chat. And Yeah, sorry for the roundabout in explaining that, but it is so how do you tell that to people? You know, like of course I ran into Danny Glover. I met Danny Glover, woohoo. And I met Adam Sandler too. But that's something completely different. That's something, you know, where you can explain that's like random and, you know, things happen. But when you say you met the one of the most notorious figures in history, like basically on a Tuesday, just doing your job, it's kind of, you know, it's kind of hard. I met one person in Mexico, and this elderly gentleman has passed away now, but he was a good friend of a friend. And he was actually he was OJ Simpson's best friend. He was OJ Simpson's best friend. And he had stories to tell about that one. That was wild. And he met Martin Bormann. Bormann was Hitler's personal secretary, and he told me he had no clue that he'd met the guy because he was one person I told a story to, and he absolutely believed me right off the bat. He's like, "Yeah, they left. None of them died. They all left." And he was on a train. He remembers he was a boy in Canada, and he was doing this cross-country train trip with his father. It must have been in the 60s or something like that. And he must have been in his teens, like 14, 15, something like that. And this guy gets on the train and he's wearing a hat and these round glasses and, you know, just sits down and he strikes up a conversation with him. And so his father had gone somewhere else to take care of something else, you know, gets coffee or something in the train, I don't know. And he's talking to this man, and then they end up getting off the train, and he ends up keep going onward. And once he got off the train, he turned around and they introduced each other. He said to him, "Oh, I never got your name," and he just winked at him. He told me and said, "My name's Martin Bormann." And he just laughed it off. You know, at the time, he had no clue who Martin Bormann was. It took a couple of years for the name to sink in when he, you know, stumbled over the history and so on and so forth. And the name pops up again. He's like, "What?" And that was when he saw the pictures of him, that was the man he saw on the train. So it's, yeah, but it's really, it's really interesting to see the reactions of people because what do you do with that kind of random information, you know? Like, okay, so what now? For me, it was, I realized that, like I said, history isn't, or the story isn't fully, completely rund. It's not round, as you say in German. Like there's a snag, there's a catch somewhere, and it doesn't mean that it's completely untrue. It just means that there's something missing. There's something that's not quite jiving about those times. And the thing is too, is that culturally speaking, the way I grew up and the way I saw it here and experienced it here is that, how should I put this? The culture here is pretty direct. You're pretty much trained to, it's better not to lie. Like it's better to just speak the truth and own it. You know, that shows what kind of a character you are. That shows what kind of a person you are. That shows what kind of, you know, that you're a stand-up person. And oftentimes, if you just stand up and you own something, you'll be forgiven for it rather than trying to hide it or run away from it or say it wasn't you or pushing it under the carpet. Like people don't really like that kind of characteristic. So it just makes me wonder when a lot of these women that I spoke to in the hospital, when they said that, and they were at the time in their 60s, 70s, 80s, that they were so completely flabbergasted. They had no clue how bad it was or the extent of things that were happening. It just makes me question, like, why would they say that if they didn't, you know? So I it didn't match the culture. It didn't match the culture. Again, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm not saying this is not true. All I'm saying is it didn't add up in my brain or in my mind. So it doesn't mean anything though. Just saying. And so anyways, that got me thinking about the strength of women, the strength of how we restart after divorces, how we pick ourselves up again and move things forward, how we restart after diagnosis with ourselves, our bodies, or our children, or our spouses, and we pick things up again and keep things moving, how we restart after so many things in our lives. And we keep things going, we keep things moving. And somehow it's not that we're never really acknowledged for it, but it's never really seen as a strength. It's never really seen as something that's truly valuable, that's truly needed in this world. That's truly, it's always kind of taken for granted as, of course you do that. Well, what if you don't? What if it's not an of course? What if it's not an of course? So, um, it's important, I feel, to whew, as I'm talking about that, the energy came right back up again in this total this total shock and this total, like, this is something you do not talk about in Germany, right? You do not. Like, nowadays you do. Nowadays, no problem. But I'm not from this Gen Z that can freely speak about things like that, right? Back then it was absolutely no, you don't talk about stuff like that. It was very hush hush, and it's very dangerous, to say something, this is what happened. So I'm still feeling that. Oh my goodness. So anyways, yeah, women are absolutely needed for societal reconstruction. They're resilient, and we need women's nurturing roles to keep society together, to keep things functioning, to keep our families together. And we are natural creators of life, of families, of social cohesion, all of that. And this is a part of the divine feminine archetype. Of course, there are darker aspects to the divine feminine as well, but we're not going to focus on those today. Some other time. I think we all know, when we're looking at Kali, but even Kali gives some kind of reason for the madness, right? But there is Lilith, and there are other archetypes where there is no reason to the destruction that we wreak havoc. And that's okay too, it's okay. Let me check the chat again and see if I lost you guys. There were so many readers going into OJ's energy. I thought it was weird, but he was still denying everything on the other side. I believe that. I totally believe that he would deny things on the other side. And that's what my acquaintance said too, that OJ he totally denied it. Like, even to himself. That it was deep. Yeah. So yeah, yeah, yeah. So in any case, though, there are tons of things that happened on these lands, as I'm sure you can imagine, besides post-war Germany, and tons of other eras too. We don't speak about we didn't in this video, I mean, speak about the Roman era here, or the Celtic era here, and the stories that go in with that, and the legends that go in with that. Like, I didn't bring all that up. But it leads me on to another story, and that links in with the divine feminine. And that is the story of Mary Magdalene. And you guys are like, what is she going on about Mary Magdalene all of a sudden? Like, where is this coming from? It was always there. I just never really opened up about it or talked about it. But I did, and that made me feel so good on the last group that I hosted, which was absolutely beautiful. Which I'm hosting now once a month. It's a free prayer group, and we just pray, we talk about certain topics, we meditate, manifest things in healing aspects. And so there I shared my connection to the feminine and to the divine. Um, Phew, there's so much there, so many instances where I literally had visions of her, or I saw a feminine figure which was benevolent towards me. And it's always been beautiful, but there have been other people as well that have seen me with a benevolent feminine figure. And I remember specifically this one lady who was in Japan, because I went to Masaru Emoto's last workshop that he gave before he passed away. And at the time, of course, we all didn't know it would be his last one. And so I was there and I met someone who was a very interesting person. And so she would have visions and she says, I see you with a woman with a vase. You serve the woman with a vase. And at the time, I was doing a lot of prayer with Kuan Yin. And so that was really interesting. But the vase is kind of, it's such a universal symbol of femininity, of womanhood. And it's a symbol of so many things, of the vessel of life, of being able to contain life, but also pour life out, of being absolutely powerful in the emptiness, but also having that space to create. Like it's a very powerful symbol, and yet it's so soft. So it's this feminine has always been there, but when it really started shining up was before that, even before that trip. And that was when I was in the hospital, number one, and doing that. And then number two, when I'd moved back to Vancouver and with my partner at the time and my daughter at the time, we moved to Vancouver and ended up opening up two businesses back to back. And then that led to other things and so on and so forth. And that's where I really started the journey that I'm on now, where I started doing meditation groups and mediumship groups and started doing live demonstrations, started working with this group of people that found missing people under the leadership of an ex-DEA agent and was signed to a TV series, and they signed me for 3 years in a row, but they couldn't make an agreement. The production company couldn't get to an agreement with the networks, so it never really came about. And so a lot of things happened, but she was always there walking with me. And then when I went and stayed with my Navajo sister and brother and their family, and I was working with their medicine man, he told me, like, you're under the protection of changing woman, which is again the feminine archetype, the divine feminine archetype. So I had seen a woman in my meditation. I had seen a woman with a lot of rays of light all around her. And at the time, this must have been, I don't know, mid 2000s, late 2000s. I didn't know what it was. So I looked it up. Turns out it's the Guadalupe, and the Guadalupe has been with me ever since. You guys see me wearing the ring actually all the time, but you probably don't know that it's the Guadalupe because it doesn't really show up. But here it is. Here she is. I don't know. Does it show up? No, it's reflecting too much, but there's a Guadalupe here. And I suddenly suddenly got the impulse after I moved back. When I moved back to Germany, where I am now located again, and I'll stay here. This is it with the moves. When I moved back, I knew I had to take time off and just, recoup, get myself reacquainted, regrounded, resettled. And so that went fine. Took care of some health issues that were kind of plaguing me, and that went fine too. But the whole time I felt like, there's this new charge that I have, and that came through the Guadalupe because before I left Mexico, for those of you that don't know, and I know I'm a little all over the place today, but before I left Mexico, I had a vision, and that vision was I'd went and seen the Guadalupe, first of all, in Mexico City twice. And that's where her tilma is. If you don't know the story of the Guadalupe, which is absolutely beautiful and stunning, please, please, please do me a favor and look it up. Watch a documentary on her, especially on her tilma and all the scientific marvels that are in the tilma. It is so stunning. It is so amazing. Okay, I'll tell you a little bit of the backstory. So there was this in 1600 whatnot. There was a Native American, an Aztec, I think, named Juan Diego, and he saw the Guadalupe. He had a vision of her, and Guadalupe told him that on the hill where her shrine is now, and which was always kind of a holy space, there were other gods that were prayed to on that hill before her. She told Juan this is where a church needs to be built. So Juan went back and he told the bishop, and the bishop's like, you need proof. So he asked the Guadalupe for proof, and she gave him the tilma. The tilma is a wonder. It is an absolute miracle that science to this day cannot explain. And there were so many things in it that are just wild, from the people that are pictured in her eyes, like 13 distinct people in both eyes, angles perfect, to the notes of music, to star signs, to the tilma being not painted. And remember, this is 1600 whatnot, not painted, but somehow the colors were impressed on the fibers. It was put onto agave fibers. And those agave fibers usually disintegrate within 50 to 70 years, not much longer. And this one is still perfect as back then. So on and on and on it goes, the story. But in any case, I went there because I had to see it for myself. And it's real. There is definitely an energy there that is not explainable. I had experiences after I saw the tilma, and I was on my way back, and just wild and kind of that's too much for me to share here. Those are mine. And but I knew that something had shifted, something had changed here. So in any case, I had a vision, and I had the vision of the Guadalupe walking away from me, and I started crying, and I was like, I can't do this without you. Like, I need support. And she turned around and she said, child, do you think I'd ever leave you alone? And she says, turn around, look who's behind you now. And I turned around, and there's a Black Madonna. And for those of you that don't know what a Black Madonna is, um, it's really profound what happened then, because I was supposed to go to Croatia after I got back from Mexico, but that didn't work out. And Croatia has a Black Madonna that protects the country. Actually, there would have been a Black Madonna 1 hour away from where I was supposed to go. I ended up going visiting a friend in Austria, and she takes me to this church that had been created by the Templar Knights. And inside of the church, which she didn't know, even though she kind of grew up in that area, that's where her family was from in Austria. And she never noticed it, just never registered for her. But we opened the door into this secret little church inside the church, and right behind the door is a Black Madonna, black, painted absolutely black. And this is not, like I said to the group, it's not a racial thing. I think we all understand that this has a kind of a cosmic meaning. It may lead back to the Isis cults of the Mediterranean. It may lead back to the Templar Knights. It may be something completely different. Nobody really knows, but they're black. And so I thought, okay, next level, next level. So I get back here, and then all of a sudden things start to come together. They just start coming together. And I knew what I'm supposed to do. I knew what the next step was. I was even And then this amazing trip happens with another friend of mine, and we went to France for 2 weeks. And it was so beautiful. I mean, I'd been to France before, but not like this, number one, and not to that area of France. And so the northern part of France, that's where I'd kind of, been. And that's beautiful. Don't get me wrong, all beautiful. But this southern part, oh my gosh. And so it kind of really cemented in me that this is what has to happen. This is what needs to be done. This is what spirit wants me to do next. And so this is what we're doing next, you guys. And this is the long, long lead in, a long, long lead in into this. And I'm going to show you the video, and you guys tell me what you think. And let me just bring it up here. 1 second. Ba- um, And what a crazy all over the place story. I know, but I had to take you on my thought process, my development process, um my connection process, and then we'll dive into even deeper, and why this is important for you nowadays and why you need to know this. So I'm just pulling this up here. And it's sad. It's so, so, so sad because our world is so much bigger and so much more magical and so much more beautiful than what we often have time to give it credit for. Our world is so, there's definitely a spiritual component to it, as you guys know, right? So, but it's still hard to speak sometimes about these otherworldly things or these irrational things or these things that make no sense or that just sound crazy, just sound wild. But then I think about all the things that are happening right now, like in the US, like with the drones and the orbs and the questions that they're throwing up and the conversations that are being had as a result of that. And it's almost to me, even though I pulled some cards and it came up that they're man-made, but there's still, there's this intention of spirit behind that, that people finally wake up, that you finally let go of this belief in the material above all else, and that you realize the spiritual is above all else, and that there is, the only reality, the true reality is on the other side, is this invisible reality where everything originates and everything starts and everything comes through us into this realm, right? So we keep looking at what we see and believing what we see, but it's really in the invisible realm. That's where we have to be rooted in. That's where we have to be grounded in. That's where we have to be connected to. And that's what will carry us through. And in the Bible, in the New Testament, it also says, don't build your house on sand. You have to build your house on faith. You have to build your house on that intangibleness, but you have to work with it. You have to work on it. You have to be willing to open yourself up to it, willing to test it, willing to put your foot into nothingness and see that you still are carried and that you still can be carried, willing to question the status quo, willing to look behind what's being told to you, willing to extend trust, faith, belief to a stranger, willing to, because these times that we're living in with so much distrust and suspicion, it's not normal. Like, we're not built for that. We're built to trust one another. We're built to believe in one another. We're built to connect with one another. And this is super, and this is one of the feminine qualities as well, right? Is this connection, belief, faith, trust, building networks, building communities, building shared spaces, building spaces where people can feel safe and feel nurtured in order to spread their own wings and fly. But instead, we're living in this hyper, and I wouldn't even say it's a masculine world, because the masculine is also supportive in your own way. This has come kind of a kind of a twisted world, no? Where we're living the twistedness of these energies rather than their true expression. So it's really important to have a look at you, your life, and see how are you living this life? How are you truly expressing yourself in this life? How are you truly tapping into this life? How are you truly tapping into spirit in this life? How are you truly, do you even really believe in spirit? Do you even really believe in spirit? And some of you may have been wanting a spiritual connection, have been wanting the spiritual experience, have been wanting to be able to say, I can feel it. I can finally feel it again, or feel it at all. That I really know that spirit is real, that I really know that there's something more than just me, my body, and surviving this life. It is so important. And that's why I'm offering you guys this. And let me now share. Let me now share. Step into a journey of the heart, mind, and spirit. Join us as we walk in the footsteps of Mary Magdalene through the enchanting south of France, a land steeped in mystery, beauty, and timeless wisdom. Mary Magdalene, one of the most compelling and misunderstood figures in history. Known as a disciple of Jesus, she is believed to have carried his teachings to the south of France after his death. Legends speak of her journey across the Mediterranean, her refuge in Provence, and the sacred wisdom she shared that still resonates today. Her presence is deeply woven into the fabric of this region, from her meditative years in the sacred grotto of Saint Maximile Saint Paul to the shores where she is said to have arrived with her companions, Her story inspires generations to embrace love, resilience, and spiritual awakening. Long before Mary Magdalene, the region of Languedoc was a sacred land for the ancient Celts. This area was deeply connected to goddess worship, honoring the divine feminine through rituals and reverence for the natural world. Carcassonne, with its ancient roots and powerful fortifications, echoes these ancient traditions, making it a place of profound spiritual energy. Beyond Mary Magdalene's legacy, the south of France holds countless other mysteries. At Bougarach, the upside-down mountain, ancient legends, and modern-day UFO sightings have earned it a reputation as a place of profound energy and otherworldly history. Montségur, the last stronghold of the Cathars, whispers of courage and tragedy. It's said the Cathars hid a great treasure, perhaps the Holy Grail itself, before their persecution and ultimate sacrifice atop the sacred mountain. And then there's Rennes-le-Château, a village shrouded in mystery. In the late 19th century, Father Bérenger Saunière discovered something extraordinary. What it was remains a secret. His newfound wealth, cryptic renovations to the village church, and strange symbols have sparked countless theories of hidden treasures and sacred truths. This is your time to rediscover your power, nurture your spirit, and immerse yourself in the wisdom of the ages. Whether you seek inspiration, healing, or simply a transformative escape, this journey is calling you. Are you ready to answer the call? Secure your place with me today and join us on this unforgettable journey to the south of France. Together, let's honor the legacy of Mary Magdalene, connect with the ancient goddesses of Languedoc, and unlock the mysteries of the past. Yay, yay, yay. Yes, yes, we are going together in September 2025. This is a trip that I've organized together with Olivia Gotti, who is born and raised in that area, who knows every nook, every cranny, every every remote corner that we could, every vortex that we could visit, and that we can immerse ourselves in the energies, experience the spiritual side of life again, experience something else rather than the day-to-day that we're experiencing now, having the space to reconnect to spirit, to really feel spirit moving through us and through the world and through everything to reconnect. My intention is to also sort of create a female initiation ceremony, because as you guys that have worked with me know, I really believe in the power of initiations. And so this is a time where you can be initiated, receive a new name, receive your connection, and really restart your life, restart your life, restart your life in a more spiritual, on a higher vibrational frequency, if you will. The frequency of that area is profound, is deeply, deeply, deeply profound. So a little bit of the backstory. South of France, southern France is incredible when it comes to the history, the richness of it. It's an area that has long been known to have generated controversial thought towards what was really taught out there, right? So this is also why I did that kind of messed up, hesitating lead in with my personal story, because I'm so shy about it, because I know how it sounds and it's not made up. And sometimes, you know, when you're telling the truth about a really bizarre experience, it's hard. It is hard. And but I needed to tell you that, because this leads also right into the stories that we've been told around what happened to Jesus, what happened to Mary Magdalene. Are these figures even real? Is the Bible even real? All of this. And this is an area that can answer those questions on a deep, 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 deep level, especially on a consciousness and a spiritual level, where you can tap into spiritual frequencies, consciousness clouds and fields. And it's not just the geographic location. So if you look up, for example, Earth geometry, you're going to find tons on southern France. It's it's also the legacy of the people that had lived there, that have lived there, that have died there, that have died for a cause, died for a belief, died for investing into the spiritual world more than they invested into the structures of the world around them, which brings us also to World War II. But I don't want to go back there just right now. So in any case, southern France is known for, especially the Cathars, the Huguenots, all these directions of thought, especially of spiritual religious thought, that led away from the mainstream and that kind of argued with the mainstream, that said, what the mainstream is being taught is not really true, is not really real for us. And we see the universe, life, our place in it, our role in it, our role in this world completely differently. We see the entire structures differently. And they attempted to live that life. So we'll be exploring the history of the Cathars as well, which root in the teachings of the Magdalene. So what is this whole Mary Magdalene thing? For those of you that don't know, some of you know, and maybe you've already been there, which is great. Come again. But with me, it's going to be completely different, trust me. And then there's the other ones of you that have no clue. You're like, what? Mary Magdalene? Who's Mary Magdalene, huh? So there are several Marys in the New Testament in the Bible, and one of them we're going to be focusing in on is Mary Magdalene. And Mary Magdalene, of course, is very controversial because she was touted, which was erroneous. It was never true, that she was a reformed prostitute. But the truth is that it is unlikely that Mary Magdalene was ever a prostitute, and that she was actually a very wealthy woman who supported Christ financially in his workings and in his dealings. And her last name, Magdala, means, and it's interesting because there is a prophecy in the book of Micah, which is in the Old Testament, that a tower, a daughter of the Tower of Magdala, would be the one to support and bear the Christ, basically. And the line of David, which is what Christ was born into. And so Magdala is a very small town in Israel. And that's where this Mary was from. And it also means tower. Magdala means tower, or synonymous or otherwise fantastic, great, amazing. So this name actually means the great Mary, right? The amazing Mary. So the Tower Mary, Mary the Tower. And this legend from the south of France says that it is upon her that the church is actually being built, or it was supposed to be built, and not on Peter, and certainly most definitely not on Paul. Because in the New Testament, it is said that Jesus gave the keys of the church to Peter, that Peter was going to be the rock upon which the church was built. But Paul came along, who was formerly Saul, and he created the church that most of our church, like the Catholic Church and all its derivatives, are now built upon. And that was a choice by 3 emperors. And I've written about that, I've posted about that, I've talked about that, so I won't dive into it. Look it up, it's history. And they basically followed this cult because there were over 400 different variations of Christianity in the early Christian days. And these 3 emperors decided upon one version, upon the Polynean version, and eradicated all the other versions violently. And so in any case, the legend in southern France has it that Mary Magdalene, Mary is the one who washed Jesus's feet with her hair and anointed his feet with spikenard oil. And this goes into marriage ceremonies as well. So, but we won't dive too much into that just yet. But it's all symbolic that she was very, very, very close to him. Now, there are several gospels that have been found after the official creation of the Bible. So, for example, the Nag Hammadi Gospels, and then there's some other ones. But there's also a Mary Magdalene Gospel that was found that is authentic. And in it, it stated that, the disciples didn't really like her much. The male disciples didn't like her much because she talked too much and because Christ loved her above all else, and that he would often kiss her on the mouth. So the story in southern France, finally, we're getting to that, goes that this Mary Magdalene, after the crucifixion, she was clearly something special to Jesus because she saw him after his resurrection. And after the crucifixion, they all had to get out of Dodge fast because, again, Jesus was also a political figure, not just the spiritual figure that he is for us today. He was absolutely a political figure in the olden times because if it went according to the lineage, if it went according to the line of David, then he was the true king of Israel. So they had to get out of Israel, him and all his, if he survived, and all his disciples. And so they figured that he and his closest group, either he and his closest group, including Mary Magdalene, would have left Israel and traveled across the sea to the next largest Jewish group. So the next largest Jewish grouping was in Egypt, and they may have landed there first, but there was another large Jewish group that was in southern France. And so to reestablish themselves or start life, where would it be easiest to go? Well, there. So they end up on the shores in a town called Saint-Marie-la-Mer, de la Mer. And in this boat are supposedly Mary, another Mary, and Sarah. And Sarah's really interesting. Sarah's really interesting, as well as Lazarus, who is Mary's brother. So Sarah in Hebrew means princess. And that's where the Grail lore comes from, because in the old French tales, it was written that Mary Magdalene landed on the shores with in French, it was written Sangreal. And Sangreal, you can either cut it after the San, so that would be holy or saintly, and Graal, which turned into the Grail or this cup. Or you can cut it after the G, so S-A-N-G, Sang, which is the blood, and real, which is royal, right? So the royal bloodline. So either way, Mary landed on those shores with something special and significant. And either the Holy Grail or the Holy Bloodline. And it was said that she then basically moved around the country, the southern part of that country. So she was spotted here, spotted there, kind of thing. There are a lot of rivers and lakes that have her name wrapped up in it, that have her name in it. So it said that she was doing baptisms there. She was doing the teachings there. And her version of Christianity is very, very different to what the men were teaching, because she understood Jesus on a much deeper level and a more profound level than Peter and Paul. So her teachings are what we would more recognize today. So way more ethereal, esoteric, relating to consciousness, not so much physical, and these are the rules, and this is what you have to do, and if you don't do them, you are bad, right? So way more along the lines of developing consciousness. And so she was teaching that in the south of France, and her teachings down there became the foundation for other teachings that arose upon it that challenged the church, which is why the church came and had to wipe it out. And as a result of that wipeout, which annihilated the grouping that rose up out of these energies that we today call the Cathars, the result of that wipeout was the Inquisition, which was developed to actually root out Catharism, root out this divine feminine Christ teachings out of the populace. So is it true that she landed there? Yes, I believe it is true. I absolutely believe it is true. Historically, there is a church down there. There is a church down there that has apparently her relics. And that means, what are relics? Relics of saints are pieces of their body after passing, or pieces of items that they use so often it became a part of them, it became holy. So a relic would be, for example, the spear that poked Jesus in the rib. bones, hair, anything of the saint. So they have relics of Mary Magdalene, and they have parts of her bone, they have parts of her skin and some hair, and they also have a skull. And this skull has been encased in the encasing that it is in, surrounded by angels holding the casing together, and that's how it's carved. It's on pictures, it's very creepy looking, but it's been in that casing since 1800s and cannot come out, otherwise the skull would disintegrate. But it survived that whole time without. So that's interesting as well. Then this sarcophagus was found in the early 20th century. And it was underneath because the church or the basilica that we're going to go see, where her skull is in, all of this, her sarcophagus, the skull, it was all underground, and people didn't even know it was there because at some point in history, I think in the 1200s, the Saracens took over that area of the land. And so these were, yeah, they were wiping out everything that was Christian. And so in the church, the priests and others hid all of this underneath the floors so that nobody would know it was there. It was in a cave underneath the church. So, and it was left there for up until recently, right? So, yeah, early 20th century when they pulled it out. And by then it had actually been long forgotten and people stumbled over it by chance, by accident. So the story goes that she ended up living in a grotto for 30 years. And from this grotto, she was teaching, she was healing, she was relaying information. Yeah, she was teaching Christianity, she was doing all of that. And Sarah may have been, now there's a Black Madonna, of course, in Saint Marie de la Mer, which we're going to go see. And this is Sarah Kali, Sarah Kali. And Sarah is possibly the Sarah that was in the boat. And she was called Sarah the Gypsy. And why? Because the root of the word gypsy, which we no longer use, and there's a reason she was called also, so much. The root of that word comes from Egyptian, right? And so she was called this because they believe that she may have been born in Egypt and then taken from Egypt to southern France with her mother, which would have been Mary Magdalene. And Sarah is a incredible patron saint for the actual Romani that we used to call gypsies. And the Romani, they go there once a year on their pilgrimage and have massive ceremonies. There are also other ceremonies in Saint Marie de la Mer where they take the relics of the three Marys and they bring them back to the ocean, do what they do, and bring them back. This is a Catholic ceremony, by the way, and so on and so forth. So it's quite an interesting area with amazing history, rich, rich, rich history. We're also going to go see Montsegur, which is a castle, the last Cathar castle to hold out. They held out, I think they were besieged for about 6 months and they held out until they couldn't anymore and they started walking out of the castle. And at the foot of the castle, they were all burned alive. The numbers are staggering. There were thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And the saying was, and whew, it's so like just thinking about it. All these people going willingly and knowingly into death because they had the option, renounce your belief or die, and they chose death over renouncing their belief. And nowadays, that kind of a consciousness is really hard to grasp and really hard to understand. And that bridges to World War II for me. And the spirits that I've spoken to here, the energies that I've connected to here, and the belief and the mindset and the strength that people had in the face of bodily harm and danger to adhere to what they believed in and to walk into death willingly and not willing to budge or move. Whereas in our society nowadays, it's kind of like what's not self-serving kind of doesn't make sense anymore, you know? If it's not serving you, then let it go. Well, what serves you? You know, what truly, honestly, authentically serves you? And sometimes that serving you doesn't look the way you'd expect it to, as in more gain materially in this physical level. So there's this, I feel a return, a calling, a harking back to these principles, not necessarily the times, but bringing these principles forward into our time and finding a way where we can stand in for what we believe in and stand strong for what we know is true. Because there are times that are going to come, that are coming, that are on their way, where this is going to be just like then, just like back then, very difficult to do. So, in preparation of that, and as women, in preparing spaces, in creating spaces, in finding our strengths, finding our what are we actually here to do? What is the role that we are here meant to play? What is because in shamanism, and to mix that in a little bit, it's very important to find your role. It's really, really important to find your role because when you know your role and you know what you're supposed to be doing, that's when the universe can support you. That's when the universe can gift you everything. That's when, because you're in the alignment, in the dream, you're doing with the universe where the energy is flowing anyways. And number one, that. And number two, if you're not in your role, then you're bringing things more out of balance. So, as a harsh example, it's like you have a family and the middle daughter is playing the role of the father. And that brings everything out of balance. The father needs to own his role and be the father and play that role. And the middle daughter needs to be the middle daughter and play her role. So sometimes when we're looking at family dynamics, community dynamics, national dynamics, it's looking at who's playing what role and what role have they taken over and why, right? And reassigning roles. But in order to be able to do that, you have to find your role, right? You have to connect with spirit enough to know, okay, this is what I'm here doing. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I'm meant to do. This is what I was called to do. This is my mission during this time on this earth. And now it's easy to also say we're always switching timelines. So how do I know, what timeline we're on and what my mission is on which timeline? This is where it comes in. Don't build your house on sand, right? Build it on faith. Build it on your connection to the divine. Build it on source, because there is only one source, multiple timelines all over the place. But if you're connected to that one source, if you're connected to your true core higher self, your true core source, you'll always be guided in the right direction, in the right way, at the right time, no matter what timeline you may find yourself on or what timeline we're all moving through. So this is what this is intended for. This trip is, like I said, a reinitiation, a reintroduction to spirit, if you will, a renaming of yourself, a feminine initiation, connecting in with your feminine expression, your feminine energies, what we're here to do as women, how we can express ourselves as women, how we can express the divine feminine, the power of femininity, finding that balance, finding our role as women as well, in order to bring that not only to our own personal lives, right, but to the greater community. Find that higher principle again, where it's not just about you and it's not just about the immediate, fixing your life, but you're called to a greater mission. You're called to a greater role. And that greater role is greater because it's greater than you. It's going to affect a lot more than you even realize or know. So I've gone on for a bit here. Let me check back with you guys in the live stream. And yeah, so it's really going to be a massively, massively beautiful, beautiful trip. And I'll share with you some of the pictures. I'm really lucky to be able to be working with one second, let me draw up the pictures and get rid of, I have too many tabs open. Oh, whoops. Okay. Mhm. So these are the pictures I can share that Olivia graciously sent to me to share with you guys. So that's one of the bedrooms because this time I'm not doing it by myself. I'm just not. So Olivia's the one, she's organizing everything. She'll be driving us. We're getting private transport, hotels, meals, breakfast included. Most meals are included. Um, what else? Everything almost except for souvenirs. So in any case, this is one of the hotels. This would be in Saint-Marie de la Mer, and it's in September, so it's not that hot. This one is Chateau de la Tour, and this is super, super beautiful, super beautiful. This is one of the Cathar castles, so we'll be seeing a lot of ruins, Cathar castles, Cathar territory. It's magic land, absolutely magic land. And then that's Montsegur. No, fudge, Bugarach. And Bugarach is well, this is like the Mount Shasta. It has everybody speaks about the energy there. But it's very light, it's very powerful, and there are a lot of UFO sightings. Then there's Carcassonne. This was with a group that she already did. And Carcassonne is absolutely, it's like a fairy tale come true. It's like, this is what Disneyland should have looked like. So yeah, this is the entryway to the grotto that Mary Magdalene supposedly stayed in for 30 years. This would be one of the hotels we would be staying at inside an old castle. So yeah, it's an old castle, the last hotel. And this would be the courtyard inside the old castle. And this is one of the Celtic places that we would be going and visiting. Again, amazing energy, very feminine energy. This is all very soft, all very feminine. This is where a lot of people do a lot of ceremonies as well, initiation ceremonies, but also reconnection to the divine feminine ceremonies, Mary Magdalene ceremonies, you name it. And this is Mirepoix. This is a town that is absolutely, it's a gorgeous little medieval town with fantastic shopping. This would want to be one of your shopping days. And this is on the way up to Montsegur. And Montsegur is all the way up at the top. It's about a 45-minute hike up, but it's worth it. And Montsegur is phenomenal. Like the energy up there is incredible. And there's a well-known portal. And that portal, people say they walk through this portal, and it's a doorway. And you walk out on the other side and you're gone. You are gone, 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 gone. It's a different everything. Your life, everything changes. Your life changes. Your energy is higher. You reach different levels, the old life, the old you, the old everything just falls away, falls away, falls away, falls away. This is the labyrinth, an old Celtic site as well. Very old Celtic area that we'd be going and visiting and soaking up the energies, feeling what we feel, talking to the fairies, the lots of fairies down there. And this is the fabled and famous tower, Tour de Magdala, Magdalene Tower. And Arende Chateau, this is Sarah, the one of the Black Madonnas that we'd be seeing. And there's a lot more there too. I have to keep something surprises, right? Something surprises. And I can't tell you everything, every single thing that we're going to see, but know that it's going to be, I like doing amazing things, you guys. I really do. I like being, I don't know, I like being reminded of the magic on this planet, the magic in the universe, the magic in our lives. I like being reminded of that. And I like giving those reminders. I like sharing those reminders. So yeah, that's what's coming up for September 2025. So you have time to reach out, let me know, ask any questions you have. I'll be creating a Facebook group. You can join it, and we'll be counting down and prepping, and it's going to be amazing because both of us are only there for you, like completely there for you. I'm working the spiritual side. Olivia's got the real life, real world side. And we'll be touring for about a week. Yeah. We'll be going from around the Marseille corner of southern France to um Carcassonne, which is near Toulouse. So you'd be um we'd be starting in Marseille and we'd be ending in Toulouse, which is yeah, pretty much the easiest way to go about it. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous route and magical, 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 magical territory. So I invite you to look up the south of France, look up goddesses and Celtic goddesses, do your research, look up Mary Magdalene, and you'll see it's stunningly beautiful. And there's a sacred geometry that the land itself has kind of unfolded in that region that also creates all kinds of vortexes and energy swirls and positivity that just influences the consciousness of people. And remember that energy, water, land, consciousness, person, it's all tied in. It's all tied in. We're all a part of this whole thing, not just separate observers. Yeah. Yeah, so tomorrow is the winter solstice as well, you guys. I'll be doing a solstice ceremony. That's why I didn't really want to do a ceremony here right now, but I'm doing one tomorrow evening on the solstice. And there will be I'll be diving even deeper and starting to express that even more, what's been taught to me over the last years, and years of working with Mother Mary for myself. Some of you guys know that I'm deeply connected to her because I've spoken about it every now and then, here and there. But now being passed off, handed off, reinitiated to the what we call the Black Madonna, which would be an expression of the Magdalene. So it feels like a level up, if you will, or a level deeper. I don't know. And yes, there are other people that have been working since God knows when with the Magdalene. Absolutely true. But everybody has their own unique path and their own unique teachings and their own unique, when something is opening up for them. So maybe this is opening up for you right now too. This is absolutely what needs to come out and what needs to happen. And to be honest, I'm also tired of, because I have been super careful on my channel ever since my channel got dinged. And some of you guys remember a couple of years ago that I was doing all kinds of information stuff on this channel, and the channel kept getting dinged. And I never understood why the little creators were always getting kind of, severely punished, but the big ones were allowed to get away with almost anything. And I had to kind of rein it in. Like I had to really kind of slow down. Plus, the energies that were being attracted to the channel is not necessarily that what I really wanted. And I want something, what I have now, intimate, private, soft, feminine, gentle, kind, generous, sweet. I didn't want that hard, driving, judgmental, critical, egotistical, selfish, So I had to be really careful, like what am I putting out there? Because that's going to, you know, bring back. But now I feel like I'm grounded again, I'm rooted again, I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I feel like I'm going to open up again, like really, really, really open up again. and really start sharing also on this channel things that may not necessarily be that easy to share. So it's practice for me, and but also it's time to get that information out there. Time to get that information out there. And the astrology is also, because some of you guys know my chart. I don't know. Some of you guys remember years and years and years ago the astrolotta reading. Years ago. That's so long ago now. It's crazy. And but yes, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I kind of kept falling back into my K2 house. So some of you guys know that your K2 will show your past life and what you're actually moving away from and what you're supposed to be releasing and letting go of. And my K2 is in my fourth house. So I feel so comfortable at home. I can create the most beautiful spaces. I can, find the most beautiful spaces. I feel absolutely like home is my castle. And I always knew that I would kind of work from home. Like it would never work for me long term to work somewhere outside of the home or anything like that. But that means my North Node is in the 10th house and it's in the sign of, depends on which chart, either Sagittarius or Scorpio. And it's got Neptune in there and also my MC and yeah, the North Node. So North Node, Neptune, MC in the 10th house. So that's always been like there's this opening of channeling, right? Neptune is kind of the channel. And again, I'm careful there too. And so I'm very, very, and that's probably the Saturn that's in my fourth house in the past, Saturn and Mars, Saturn regulating that Mars energy. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. But that's what I'm feeling right now. And that's where it's flowing for me. That's where it's going for me. And I'm feeling way more connected, deeper than ever with this feminine energy, and that the feminine energy is awakening. It's not coming up and out the way we thought it would, in this masculine, overt, super visible, here I am, this is the power way. But it's a constant reminder to stay soft, especially in your heart, a constant reminder to be resilient and flexible in your thinking, a constant reminder to sidestep, to move like water, a constant reminder to dance, a constant reminder to be nurturing, to be supportive, to be giving, a constant reminder that these two are strengths, not weaknesses or basic necessities, but they're desirable traits. And feeling that again about yourself and about your life, I think it's super important. Okay, let's see here if you guys are still with me. And yes, the dates in September are September 10th to September 20th, basically, 19th, exactly. Yeah. Celestial Infinity. I remember the Astrolata days. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, open conduit, absolutely, absolutely. And so with the Neptune opposite my Saturn, Mars, it's almost like Saturn kind of disciplines that drive Mars, you know, and I'm more reticent, yeah, reflective as well. But I'm meant to open up and work with it. So this is what I'm learning in my life right now, you guys. I'm sharing it openly with you. And by the end of it, I will have mastered it, but up until then, I am learning. And but it's a joy. And I love this journey and I love these teachings and I love to learn. And I'm completely open, I'd say. I am completely open to whatever's next, to what's coming next in my life, to that next chapter, to that next experience, to that next journey. I'm so wide open now. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. CJ Brooks, I like your stories. Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. I have so many. Yeah. Like I said, this is the internet and I'm super, super careful. Yeah. Mm, but that one is a huge one that I just shared with you guys. And it's deeper than I can put into words because this is like, I don't know, imagine he was the complete opposite, but from the name recognition, imagine after everything you've been taught and told, you go into a restaurant or you're working in a hospital, and all of a sudden you walk by and you see a name on the thing that says John F. Kennedy. And then you walk into the room and it is the guy, and you're like thinking, I can't be seeing what I'm seeing. This can't be right. He's not supposed to exist. And then you go and research, could there be another one? Could there be someone else with the same name? And nope, this is it. This is at that moment, at that age, at that stage, with those looks in that place where you are at. Nope. And then you try to talk to the people, you try to talk to the servers, you try to talk to, or to the other nurses or wherever you're at, and you say, wait a minute, did you see what I see? And everybody looks at you blankly and they don't say yes and they don't say no. They just, so if you don't like what you're seeing, then look away. If you don't want to go work in that room, then don't go. So is that an answer? I guess it is, unless we go into denial. So it's I can't make that stuff up. Like it's too, if you look at what I explained and what I said, I can't make it up. I can't make it up. I can't make it up. If I made it up, there would be details missing or other details or I don't know. But I don't even want to convince. I don't care. Believe it, don't believe it. That is something that shook my understanding of what is taught to us and told to us. And not to disbelieve everything, but to question everything and to be open to various interpretations and angles and perspectives, and to be open to other possibilities as well. Just stay open and not think that, oh, this is the way it was because they've been saying that for 40 years. Mm. Yeah. How do we? Yes, the link is in the description box. Going to be, if it's not there yet. And there, everything is listed. Also the itinerary, so exact dates and locations. So it's right in that page. And also Olivia's information is listed so you can check out who's doing all this. And she's got a fantastic track record, fantastic support from a lot of people. She's always busy and she does really, really, really good tours. So I'm excited. I'm really excited about this one. Really, really, really excited. And the timing as well, because of everything. I mean, I don't need to explain to you guys what's happening on our planet and all the things that are going on. Like it's so much, nobody can keep up anymore. It's just wild. And that's why nobody's taking it seriously anymore because you can't. You don't have time to process that much, let alone integrate it. And like I said, I feel like all these things that are also happening are for people to break their minds open that are so deeply entrenched in a materialistic perspective on things, view of society, view of our lives, view of the world, that it's time to wake up. Like it's really time. I know that sounds cliche and we're so overhearing it, but it really is time to wake up. It's time to like realize this is just a game. This is all not real. Not real, not real. This is not reality. And I really believe that, you know, the people I'm talking to, obviously I'm preaching to the choir. Obviously, you guys already know this. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. But there are people out there, and I'm sure you know a couple that totally don't believe in anything at all, that don't believe in anything. So it's am I still sharing that map? No, I'm not. Okay. Yeah, that don't believe in anything at all. And they need this wake up. They really need this wake up. They need to have these questions, hanging in the air. They need to have these doubts. Oh my God, could this be real? I never thought I'd be someone who's talking about this. I never thought I'd be someone who's seeing this. I never thought I'd be someone who's engaging with this. There's this woman who was talking to an orb, and she asked the orb if it believed in Jesus Christ. And I'm like, are you serious right now? And it's like we hang on to these concepts, and that's another thing that we're going to be releasing and experiencing the release of in southern France is the releasing of these concepts that have a hold over you, that have a grip on you. But in any case, she needed that. She needed that. She needed her reality to just be broken open. First, talking to this orb, seeing the orb respond to her questions. And I mean, I have a friend, well, she's passed away now, but she made a book on orbs. That's what she was doing for years. She was photographing orbs, and everybody thought she was nutters. Well, not everybody, but those people. And everybody said free, and now all of a sudden people left, right, and center are seeing these orbs, and they're calling them plasmoids now. And but people need that. They need that experience because they can't release on their own. They need the shock. They need the shock experience. And so that's spiritually, the spiritual background part of what's happening is because we are so deeply entrenched, like really deep, you guys. And we don't even realize how deep because it's so normal. But we're really deeply entrenched, and it's time to get our heads unstuck. It's time to pull us ourselves out of the sand, and this is what's happening to a lot of people right now. Yeah. So, um, yay, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I am so excited. And I love, 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 I don't know. I feel a lot also energetically safer. Like it was weird because I love Mexico. I really love Mexico. But honestly, a lot happened there for me. And a lot was going on during the time I was there. And my friends know this, but it was actually, I always felt there like I was living on the dark side of the moon. The energy was so, it, the energy of the land and me was one thing, like that was beautiful. The collective consciousness and me was another thing. And it always kind of subtly felt to me, I can't describe it any other way, as being underwater on the dark side of the moon. And it's more about all of a sudden the subconscious became your main consciousness. I don't know how else to explain it, but that's how it was for me. And some people get that because they had a similar experience, and other people totally have a different experience, and that's okay. But a lot happened down there that was outside of way far, 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 far outside of my comfort zone. Let's just put it that way. Let's just put it that way. And if you like my stories, I'll tell you one. So this was my first night in Mexico, and I posted it on my old Facebook, but this was my first night in Mexico. I'd never really been to Latin America up until then. And so I traveled to Costa Rica to visit a friend of mine. This friend of mine had a bed and breakfast, and it was the best bed and breakfast. It has number one in Costa Rica, or used to. He passed away 2 years ago. But it was actually his wife's, and they were in Aden, Atenas, and she had inherited it from her parents, and so they had built it up and so on and so forth. So he always said to me, "Hey, come down and visit. We'd love to show you around. We'd love to show you this beautiful country." And so I went down there, and it wasn't mine. Costa Rica's not mine. I don't know. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. the Switzerland of Latin America. I get it. It's really, really beautiful, but the energies, I couldn't cope. I was just like, okay, this is pretty. When can I leave? And so I left, but I wasn't ready to go back home yet. So I went to Mexico because I wanted to see a pyramid. I wanted to see the magicians, the sorcerers pyramid. And I thought, ooh, like I'm in Mexico. I'm really seeing the pyramids. I'm like, oof. So, anyways, I land in Cancun. I thought I'd figured out how I need to get from where I got out to the bus station and catch a bus to 4 hours away where I'd rented my Airbnb. And but I forgot to really, really check and where my exit strategy was. That was if I'd landed internationally, I would have had that exit. But since I was flying in from Costa Rica, I landed nationally, even yeah. And that was a completely different exit. So I was a little bit lost. And so I asked around and they pointed me in the general direction. And I went over there. It turns out you can't just walk in, but they got me in somehow. But anyways, there was this girl standing before. And again, I hadn't really traveled to Latin American countries or to these kind of countries. Like I was always in the sheltered areas traveling around. And so she had this lanyard around her neck, which had the bus name company ADO written all over it. And she was dressed in a white shirt and blue slacks, looked very professional. And when you leave the airport, like in Canada or anywhere in Europe, you're not really drowned in people trying to sell you stuff or get you to buy stuff. So I wasn't really, paying attention. I was looking for where's my bus. And she looked it. She looked the part. What can I say? And she spoke English. I mean, that was her in with me. And her name was Larissa. Her name was Larissa, and that was my best friend in grade school. My bestest friend in a whole wide world. Her name was Larissa when I was like 4, 5, 6, 7. And so anyways, she's like, hey, my name is Larissa. I can help you get to the bus. I can help you get to ADO. I'm like, all right. And she's like, when do you want to go? And I'm like, well, right now, optimally. And she's like, oh, we have no room on the bus anymore. And then this other guy comes up and he gives me his Mexican voting card. And that voting card, since I didn't really check it, it just looked official. And he says, oh, this proves to you that I work here at the airport. So I just glance at it and his picture was on there. So I hand it back to him and I'm like, okay. And he was dressed in an ADO bus driver's uniform. Like that's what he was wearing. And so they tell me that there are no more buses and they can get me a private driver. And I'm like, I don't really want a private driver. And they do it for corporations and companies all the time. I can trust them. And again, she's speaking perfect, flawless English, right? So she's like, you can really trust us. I know there are a lot of scammers out there, but we're not one of them. And we'll get you this private driver for like $400. So I bargained her down to 270 and I thought I was doing great. And this guy drives up. She promises that he speaks English and that he's from Merida, from the place that we're going to be going to. And I get in the truck and I get back out again and I pulled my suitcases out again because he didn't look the part and he clearly didn't speak English. And they're like, oh my God, there was a mix up. Your guy was supposed to have spoken English. But sorry, we can't get you him anymore. Will you take him? So I'm like, okay, now I really have to go because I didn't want to get to Merida after dark. This is my first time alone in Mexico, female. So we start driving, and in the beginning, I'm thinking, what am I doing? And then I thought, fuck it, I'm just gonna get there. And we had a great time. Like he couldn't speak a word of English, but he was nice. We stopped off. I had my first horchata. We got guinea. We stopped off at some, I got tortillas and tacos, and it was all right. So, anyways, we keep driving, but we're driving the back road, so we're going over these speed bumps all the time, right? So the topes and and I'm like, what are we doing? Why aren't we taking the highway? And he's like, the highway's too expensive. And I'm like, I would pay for it because he's like, it's a $50 US dollars. And I'm like, I'll pay for that. And he's like, no, it's okay. So I think he didn't even have a driver's license or he was illegal in Mexico. I think he was actually now in retrospect, maybe from Guatemala or something. So anyways, we're driving and all of a sudden I look over at his gas tank and I see the needle going down and I'm thinking he's going to tank sometime, right? Or say something, like I'm coming from these countries where you don't really have to worry about stuff like this, but he's not saying anything. So right before the gas tank was empty, all of a sudden we hear this big bang in the back of his G SUV, and one of his tires had blown. So the tire blew, and then his tank was empty. We're on this unnamed highway. Now it's dark in Mexico, my first night. Yeah, I've got stories, you guys. I've got stories. I had to hitchhike my way out of there because there was no getting out. Like there was nothing. I wasn't going to stay there the entire night with him. He was like saying, "Oh, the police are coming to pick us up because they have the VIN number of the car." I'm like, "What?" And he's like, because they can see it from the satellite. I'm like, "Uh-huh." And I was so angry. I was so angry. I forgot where I was. I forgot, things can go wrong here. And I started yelling at him. I just let loose. I was like, you freaking moron. And why didn't you just tell me? I would have gassed up. And he says it didn't make a difference because the tire blew anyways. And that's when I kind of started laughing because I'm like, what else can you do? What else can you do? But it was in retrospect where I thought maybe I shouldn't have yelled at him. Like that could have gone the other way, but it just came out of me. So then I stuck my finger out, and to the humor of the universe, and not to do what I did, you guys, I'm not saying this. This is just one of the teachings I had. But my driver's name was Salomo. Okay, Salomo. The first people that stopped to try to help me, she was 9 months pregnant. Her name was Maria. Her husband's name was Jose. But she couldn't take me and my luggage, and it had to be me because the car was full because they were just driving back from her getting all this stuff because she was about to give birth. So I would fit in there, but otherwise no. But she stayed in touch with me per WhatsApp to try and see if I was okay. My Airbnb hostess was amazing. Like she kept in touch with me as well to see if I was okay. She said, you know what, don't call the police because yeah. And she's not going to do that to me. And she could try to call a cab, but she doesn't see any cab going out to about 60K outside of Merida to some random. Like she couldn't see that happening. So I had to hitchhike, and that's what I ended up doing. Then the second one that stopped, he said he wasn't going into Merida, he was driving around it, so that would be too far a distance for me to be sitting with my stuff and waiting. Possibly there would be no cab there or something. And so the third one, though, he took me with him, and I had to get in his truck. Like there was no other option. It's now pitch dark. They can barely, like, again, it's a no-name highway, so no highway lights, and people are suspicious, right? So they're just as suspicious of picking you up as you are of. And so I had to get in. And so we put my luggage all the way at the back. And this was this huge monster truck, like the biggest. I get in the front and I'm just ready to go. Like, don't touch me, don't talk to me, just get me to where I was in so much. And I thought, how did I get here? Like, what happened? And yeah, but he was so nice, you guys. He was so nice. He tried to cheer me up. He was kind of joking me along. When we got there, he parks the truck and then he goes with me. Well, actually, I didn't go anywhere, but he went and I just stopped with my luggage, but he went and found me a cab driver. He told the cab driver everything had happened and that I had to go get money and so on and so forth. And they were beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people. And I didn't think too much because I don't think I would have been able to handle it if I thought too much while it was happening. But afterwards, I thought, whoa, that could have gone a completely different way. Whoa. Yeah, that could have gone a completely different way. So, but that's when I kind of also, the names started coming back to me as well, that his name was Salomo, then Jose and Maria. And I realized, oh my gosh, like I was always okay. And this was a lesson in wisdom. And yeah, so there's one story. Yeah. 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 My life, you guys, it's fun. It's fun, but trust me. Trust me, trust me, trust me. I've been to some beautiful places and met some amazing people, and there are also some magical, magical, magical events that have happened. And I hope they continue to occur to happen. And I hope they continue to occur to happen with the people that I care about, like you. And that yeah, yeah, we have some amazing, magical times together. That would be amazing without stress, though. I don't like doing anxiety-inducing stuff anymore. No, 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 no. One step at a time now. And I'm also in a different phase of my life, you know? Yeah, different phase of my life. So yeah, it's very But I really believe like these experiences that something else was watching over me, something was protecting me, something was there for me, something was guiding me. Because again, while it was happening, I wasn't really experiencing fear, except when I got in the truck and I was sitting in front and there was nothing I could do. Like I couldn't move, I couldn't get angry, I couldn't, what do I need to do next? Like I had to sit and wait until we'd driven the 60 kilometers to get to that town and or city. And afterwards, I was way, way more careful to the point of paranoia. And a friend came to, or an acquaintance came to visit me while I was there, and she kind of opened up to the doors again for me, and that I could really enjoy Mexico, that I could enjoy the space because that was a little traumatic. Yeah, it did take a little bit, but not too much, but and but I was protected the whole way. And I really believe that I there's something otherworldly in Mexico. It is a portal to another world in more dimensions than one. I also always felt the extraterrestrial presence there very strongly. And another friend of mine, she had that gift. Like some people have this kind of connection to, and she was able to, she showed me pictures and of that she'd taken of craft that she'd seen, and you can literally see it. Like you can exactly what they're seeing now pretty much are on these pictures. I've posted those too, I think over on my Instagram somewhere. But yeah, yeah. And now they're admitting that yes, just off of Baja, there's an island, and underneath the island is a base that they know about. They've known about for a very long time. And this is partially also why the Mexican government kind of discourages people from going there by saying there's choppy waters and it's dangerous. But it's true, there are choppy waters and it is dangerous, but there's a little bit more than choppy waters. But yeah, there are tons of stories in Mexico around extraterrestrials, tons of sightings. I think it's one of the countries where the most sightings have occurred, or one of the most sightings occur. And yeah, there's definitely something happening there, definitely something going on. But also, it's also the only country that the Catholic Church up to now has tried to exorcise. Yes, they did an exorcism of Mexico. They did. But the Dalai Lama also went out and blessed certain areas of Mexico as well, such as in San Miguel de Allende. And so I don't know. There's something there. Something is there. But there's also something in south of France, and it's a light, pretty, beautiful energy. It's very, very feminine, very soft, very ethereal, Venusian. It's almost like if Venus had an outpost on this planet, it would be southern France. It definitely would be. Yes. Sending a hello from a train in Slovakia. Hi. Hi, Sophie. Ah, yes, it is. It was anxiety inducing. I'm telling you. Yuppers. And then there was the time that I almost died driving up. We drove 4 days from Playa del Carmen to San Miguel de Allende because I'd moved. We were living in Playa del Carmen, and which was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And this was around the time that I knew that there wouldn't be a we for much longer. And I decided I was going to go north because Playa was getting too hot for me and swampy, and it felt like a Disneyland cruise that I couldn't get off of because they're so transient there. And tons of tourists and from people from other countries, but it's a constant coming and going. And you can't really, I don't know, there is a core group there for sure, and more and more now. But at the time, this was 2020, 20, yeah, 2020, 2020, yeah, 2020. So exactly that year, and there were four hurricanes back to back in Playa del Carmen. I just couldn't deal with it. Why I couldn't deal with it? Because every time there was a hurricane, the power would go out, which meant no AC, no internet, all the food in your fridge spoiled. The AC would be full of mold because yeah, it's not cold, you're not so it's moist, it's hot, it's a jungle, and the mold would grow everywhere. And the way the houses were built, because of the pressure of the hurricanes as well, the water was rolling down the walls on the inside. So it didn't matter, how high end your luxury apartment was. It ended up still being kind of yeah. So I thought, I need somewhere that's a little less wet. And I decided to go up north, and I still had my doggy though. And that prompted us to drive 4 days because no airline would take him, which is also why I don't have my bear anymore. So if you guys remember my little doggy and you wonder where he went, he's still a part of my heart, and he is very happy where he is now. He's got a little brother named Oliver. And they look like, what's that Disney series with the two pugs? What's the name of it again? I can't believe it, but his new owners are amazing. They're very active in the community that they live in San Miguel. And I'm so glad that I found them, and that they found Bear. They bonded instantly. I don't think Bear missed me too much. Like he was never that guy. He was never that guy. We were bonded, but it wasn't like that. So he adapted quickly and easily. I remember one of my best friends watching him for a week while I was sick. I had a cold, and I'm like, "Did he miss me?" And she's like, "No, I wish I could tell you yes, but no." So in any case, moved up north, drove the 4 days because of the dog, because no airline would take him because he was too big, and because he was a pug. So because he's a pug, they don't take him in cargo anymore because they don't take pugs in cargo, especially in hot countries. They won't do it. And he has to fit in a kennel, and he has to be, I think it's 10 kilograms with the kennel, and that kennel has to fit underneath the seat in front of you. But I had a big pug with long legs, and I think somewhere along his lineage, he was mixed with something else, something pit bully possibly. But he was too big, like just too big. There was no way. And he was too puggy. Like he would never be still in his kennel underneath a seat. Like it just wasn't gonna happen. So they wouldn't let him on. The ESL letters weren't working anymore. No airlines were taking ESL letters anymore unless you actually could prove that your dog was trained, and all of this and all of that, because too many people had abused it. So we had to drive, and that's also why he got a new family, was I couldn't take him with me. I searched everywhere to be able to transfer him from Mexico to Europe, and it just wasn't possible. Again, that hurdle, no flights out of hot countries. Mexico is classified as a hot country. Then the next stop would have been Colorado, where he would stay by himself, in a kennel with other dogs for 3 to 4 months until this company, which would charge me, I think, close to $12,000, would try to find a flight for him or some other way to get him across. And I'm like, why do this stress to him? Like that's stress for a dog. That's super stressful. And when I checked for boats, that would, because I honestly, I had a friend who I have a friend who used to do well, she still does boats. She has her skipper's license, so she's the one that drives the boats back and forth for people that have boats. So they'll, people fly down to Antigua or whatever, and she'll drive the boat with them back to North Carolina. Or they sailed to North Carolina and now they need the boat back in Antigua, so she'll take the boat and go down, so on and so forth. So I'm like, hey, can you find a boat for me and my dog? And she's like, yeah. And but somehow that never worked out. And then when I checked for cruise liners, because I thought, okay, they can't be that expensive and with a dog, but it was the same thing. The only one that takes doggies is the Queen Elizabeth that goes from, I think, New York, Rhode Island, somewhere up there to Hamburg, but they were booked out 2 years in advance. And when you put your dog on there, you don't see your dog. Like you get visit time for like, I don't know, 20 minutes, 45 minutes a week. And otherwise your pet is taken care of by others. So that would have still kind of been okay for me, but a 2 year wait time. Hmm. And how do I get him from Mexico to New York, right? To get on that boat. So it all just became too complicated and too much stress for me, too much stress for him, especially also as well. I mean, 3 months in a kennel in Colorado and kind of in limbo, that can't be fun. And for my little guy. So I decided I'd find a new family for him and rehome him because I knew I needed my time in Mexico, spiritually, energetically, it had come to an end. And the why I got the dog in the first place, I didn't really want a dog. I'd had dogs all my life and I wasn't keen on getting one, but my partner at the time, he really wanted a dog. Isn't that always how it goes? But he wasn't too good with dogs. So I thought it's better if I keep the dog than, yeah. So that's how I ended up with Bear, actually. And yeah, so I found him a new family. The new family is amazing, awesome. I still see him on Facebook all the time. I see all his pictures. I know he's doing well. He's got a little brother because right after Ephraim got Bear, that's the name of his new dad, and his wife, and they have no children. So these two doggies are their children. And so right after he got Bear, maybe a month or two later, he went and got this other dog, pug, but a beige pug named Oliver. And now those two are totally, yeah. So he's found his forever family, and maybe I was just the bridge for that. I like to think of that way because sometimes I do miss him a lot. And I wish things had been different, but it is what it is. So in case you were wondering, you've seen me for a while and you're wondering where my doggy went, that's where he went. Yeah, yeah. Why am I still seeing this map? Like every time I look on are you guys seeing a map or are you guys seeing me? Because when I look on my control box here, it looks like I'm seeing a map. 1 second. Like every time I look. Yes. All right. So that's pretty much all I have to share today. I know it was a little convoluted and confusing, and that's because I'm just not used to speaking about my personal things on this. My deeply personal things. Oh, good, good. You guys see me. Okay. And that one was really hard to get out because I know how wild it sounds. And you might believe me while I'm talking about it, and then you'll get off this live and you'll be like, huh, I don't know, maybe she saw somebody else. No, guys, it was him. It was him. Yes, it was him. It was him. It was him. And I don't know, what do I do now with that? Do I write a book about it? Like, what? What do I do? It's like this random encounter. Yeah. Mm, yeah. But otherwise, oh, we've put so much thought and so much effort into this this September trip, and I know it's going to be amazing, and I know it's absolutely called for, and I know it's going to be kissed and blessed by the divine because I am kissed and blessed by the divine. Yes. And I know that I'm safe in the hands of God, in the arms of God, and I have the experiences to prove it to myself, prove it to myself. To whom else do you want to prove anything to, anyways? So, but I know that this is the time. This is really the time. This is really, really, really the time. And she's always come. If you look through the apparitions of Mary as well, the divine feminine energy through the energy of Mary, Mother Mary now. Her apparitions usually show up, or her energy usually comes in some way, shape, or form very strongly before some really challenging times to give hope, to give support, and especially to plant a seed of a reminder for people that there is something else, that there is something else to hold on to. There is something else. There's not just what we see in front of us or what we're experiencing in the moment. There is something else. And I really want to contribute to that. That's what I want to contribute to. Mhm. Okay, you guys, I think that's it for today, unless you have any questions or anything you want to share. Anything you want me to look into, anything that I should be reading for you, let me know. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. The video and all the links are going to be going up right after this live. So I'll be unlocking that video so you can go check it out, and the websites that are connected. And of course, also you can check out Olivia and again, see for yourself. Yes. Yes, the Lenormand book. My book has been a work in progress. Like the Lenormand book, that I will do. I think that's the quicker one, but there's another book I've been working on, and it's been taking a while because I want it to come from an authentic place. I don't just want to, plug my idea into Chat GPT and then, okay, I've got a book. That's not what I want. And I wasn't done my development. So the other book that I've been working on is something that I experienced in the January of 2020, which was really, really, really earth-changing, life-changing. At the time, absolutely, absolutely horrific. And then over the years, this psychedelic experience kind of unpacked itself and unfolded, and the medicine and the work that I had to do, and the things I was seeing, the things I was learning, the things I was integrating, the things I was realizing, the things I lost and had to re-find. And there's there was so much to pack into that book. And so I feel like I'm now living through the final chapter of it, and I'll be able to finally close this book off in more ways than one. And I sincerely intend that this is a book for people that do psychedelics and completely have to start over, that have this psychedelic experience and it's not what everybody told them it was. And it's nothing, not even close to anything that was expected or that people said it was going to be, and how to find your way back from that and how to do it alone, because too many kids are doing it alone in front of their computers, and or alone with a group of friends in the basement or out in the woods or what have you, and having experiences that they can't integrate. And so there's no point in fighting against it because people are going to do it. The only thing that you can do is educate, 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 and offer resources and offer a different perspective, and not always this golden painted, like, oh, it was amazing and I went flying with the angels and I did that because I did all the work on side of me. Like, no. No, no, no. So yeah, so that's what that book is about. But like I said, it's taken a while because it never felt quite complete. There was always another But now I feel like I've come full circle. Again, that feminine symbol, full circle. And I feel different. And I feel like this is now the final chapter. And then I can release the book. Yep. Mm, yeah. All righty, you guys, I love you so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your energies. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for believing me. And I hope you enjoy my offerings, and I hope that you find something there that supports you in your life as well, and that helps you get through, helps you be re-inspired or find new ideas or find new solutions or see things in a different way or you name it. But again, if you have any questions or you would like me to look into something specific, I'm open for ideas or questions that you may have or areas or topics that you find interesting, and I will definitely do a deep dive into that. Okay. Otherwise, I'll sign off tonight, and I hope you join me in the session tomorrow, the winter solstice ceremony, which is going to be beautiful because we really are just doing ceremony. It's not going to be as much talking. It's really going to be ceremony, ceremony, total ceremony. Okay, see you there. Bye.